Over 20 years on since the Soviet invasion of 1979 came the US invasion of 2001 under the pretext of 9/11. Add another 20 years and you get the US withdrawal, leaving Afghanistan to the Taliban. Altogether, that's 40 years of different reasons to fight or run for Afghans. Iran has been a popular destination for those 40 years and more. It may not be a long way, but it's a hard way for Afghans crossing the border in a panic to get into Iran. Many did try for visas, which Iran was granting at the speed of light given the recent wave of turmoil in Afghanistan. But still, things went wrong for some. To hear of their struggle and how things are once they get in, and what hosting refugees means for Iran, stay with me, Leila Faramarzi, on Iran Today. It's education and health services on offer, as well as livelihood opportunities for refugees. Also, they can access banking services. Actually, it's a matter of helping refugees thrive, not survive, as UNHCR worded it. Ms. Jafari did a law degree here, but dreamt of starting a coffee shop. She got her dream cafe, Cafe Telma. It was one of a kind on account of what it served and who it was owned by.
The cafe became famous within a month through the support of Iranian domestic media. The cafe became busy and people from different cities visited to see our progress. We had customers from cities across Iran. It was exciting. The fact that we served Afghan cuisine that people liked was a point of attraction. We had regular customers coming by to eat an Afghan dish, gabeli polo, each day. Their revenues have been good too.
But there are limitations and numbers are high. Iran has been dealing with one of the largest and most protracted urban refugee situations in the world. And as I spoke to our cafe owner over past days, she was out of business for 3 weeks already. Having run a popular bustling cafe for 2 years, Ms. Jafari contemplated opening one up in Kabul. But that was in early summer when the situation in Afghanistan had already deteriorated, so the Iranian government didn't allow her to exit this country. She's resident of Iran, hence their concern. And 2-3 weeks after her attempt, the Taliban had already taken over in Afghanistan anyway, and she wouldn't want to return.
In the past, it was different. In the past, the Taliban weren't as advanced, meaning if we wanted to return to Afghanistan to build our country, it was easier to predict the situation. Now it is more difficult because the Taliban have more facilities and equipment such as guns and tanks, among others. Maybe one day everyone will unite and return to Afghanistan.
As of March this year, we had up to over 3 million Afghans alone in this country. That's 780,000 registered refugees and between 2.1 to 2.5 million undocumented Afghans. Over 474,000 Afghan national children are receiving education in Iran completely free of charge. And Iran spends about 20 trillion riyals every year on the education of foreign national students residing in this country. The head of the International Affairs Department of the Ministry of Education, Gholam Reza Karimi, confirmed this. Now, all said, what of kids not covered by the government? Self-governing schools such as this one, Farhang School, are a refuge for immigrant kids who couldn't make it into public school. Although since 2015 they are officially allowed into public schools by a leader's decree, whether they are registered or not. So what's holding them back? Mr. Musavi, the principal and founder of the school, will tell us in a moment.
In 2015, fortunately, an order was issued that Afghan children can study in government-funded schools with Iranian documents. This order was executed well for 2 or 3 years, and the majority of children were able to go to schools. The first year this order was issued, we had 500 students, and roughly 300 of them were able to move on to public schools. But in the years that followed, unfortunately, conditions became more difficult. Other challenges existed. For example, Afghan immigrants lived on the outskirts of the city, in areas where a large population of Iranian children lived. In these areas, we still have schools that operate in double shifts. This is because of the high population of kids.
It's a valuable effort. The school sets the foundation for kids to carry on to public schools, and if they choose, university. And some of those university graduates have returned to train new students in what was their own early school and chance at a better life.
The special school for Afghan citizens operates under the same auspices as Iranian public schools. It is not separate, meaning we have received our operation license and we are regulated. We accept any Afghan immigrant child and educate them until their families are able to solve their Iranian residency problems. We are a bridge for children coming from abroad, where they become socially accepted and familiar with Iran's educational system. Also, this system is a transition point for those migrating to Iran who will join Iranian society. They become familiar with the culture, language, and books.
I got to talk to some of the kids and a parent who labored to put his son through school in Iran to see him take up medicine in Afghanistan. The school appears homely, with kids happy. They've turned up to register for the new school year beginning with autumn, 23rd of September.
I thought there was more peace of mind here, maybe because they teach us better here. In Afghanistan, there was not a lot of peace and security. For example, some cities experienced explosions.
My mother brought us here because there was no stability and security in Afghanistan. Also, she thought the educational system in Iran is better and there's peace here.
It's a very good country with nice people who are friendly towards us, but maybe some Iranians might not feel comfortable around us, but that's okay, it's their country and maybe that is how they feel.
As soon as there is peace in Afghanistan, I will return to my own country because Afghanistan is my country and I am more comfortable there.
As for where school might lead, that's university, 57% of international students here are studying for a master's degree. 27% for a bachelor's degree and 15% are educating to receive a PhD. This is while the remaining 1% study at other levels. Law, Persian literature, and computer engineering are the top 3 fields of study for foreign students here. The parent we got to talk to just put his son through school here, we said. His aspiration was medicine, and he took it to Afghanistan. But his legacy met with challenge.
I've been in Iran since 1989 and later got married and had a child. At the time, our child didn't have an Iranian national identification card, so he was not able to go to schools in Iran. We came to Mr. Mousavi's special school. Our child studied at the special school for Afghan citizens for several years, and then we were issued a family visa. After that, we were able to send our child to public schools. We took the educational documents from Mr. Mousavi's school to register our kid in public schools where our child was accepted and made high grades. After getting a high school diploma, our child took the National University entrance exam where they received marks that would allow them to study to become a medical doctor. But they told us that Afghan citizens were not allowed to study in Iran. So our child went back to Afghanistan where they completed 3 years of medical school that was disrupted by the Taliban.
Back to Iran. A healthy mind comes with a healthy body. And out of 970,000 foreigners, men and women in working age of 15 to 60 years, some 36,000 are under social insurance coverage in this country. The statistic was confirmed in July 2018 by the head of the Social Security Organization's Department for Foreign Nationals at the time, Ahmad Reza Khazai. I've more facts and figures on different matters for you, confirmed to me by authority a lot more recently. Mehdi Mahmoudi is Director General for Aliens Affairs. Let's hear him out.
We have been providing services to asylum seekers for 40 years in 5 different fields. The services are in the fields of aiding in livelihood, employment, education, healthcare, and emergency response for natural disasters. We cooperate with international organizations, particularly with the UN in Iran in these fields. Together, effective services have been provided. Over 550,000 students have studied in Iran. A portion of these students were categorized as in need of education who didn't have permission to study. These students were registered.
120,000 refugees were assisted to access Iran's health insurance scheme as of April. The national insurance scheme allows for free COVID-19 treatment and hospitalization. It also subsidizes, namely, the cost of surgeries, dialysis, radiology, laboratory tests, and outpatient care. However, many refugees are not able to afford the premium costs, and Iran is almost alone in handling the refugee situation. The UN Refugee Agency UNHCR's 2021 funding appeal of under $100 million is only 7 or 8% funded.
A number of Afghan nationals who come to Iran are actually asylum seekers. Each year, we are giving 1-year temporary residency under the arrangement plan. Some of the Afghan immigrants have entered Iran with valid documents and visas who come for education, employment, tourism, and medical treatment. Also, there is a portion of Afghan immigrants that enter the country illegally. Those who enter illegally face legal penalties and are deported. Also, borders need to be controlled and regulated to prevent people from illegally entering the country.
Registration or Amayesh card holders, visa holders, and undocumented but registered Afghans can access basic education, healthcare, including COVID-19 treatment, and humanitarian aid, in theory as well as practice. Amayesh card holders are eligible for conditional work permits limited to 87 different types of employment, primarily in construction, agriculture, or other vocational industries. And in October of 2019, Iran ratified a bill granting citizenship to children of Iranian mothers and non-Iranian fathers. That has allowed more than 100,000 children of Iranian women married to foreign nationals, mostly Afghan and Iraqi, to become Iranian citizens. Time for a short break. We'll be back in no time. Always room to manage more, but there have been interesting developments, partly on account of the people. One is that surgeons are offering free services to refugees or immigrants, as they prefer to call themselves, due to the contribution they've made to construction in this country. All that after a quick media review, though. Here's what other news outlets are saying. Tasnim News notes, as has the Financial Tribune, that the US wouldn't help without gain. It just makes a mess and leaves it behind. US West never help others, have inflicted carnage on Afghans, says the Iranian president. President of Iran Ebrahim Raisi decried the policies of the US and other Western governments that have never proved useful in settling the problems of other nations, saying they have only wreaked havoc on the Afghan people over the past 20 years. The US and Westerners have never untangled any problem facing other nations and will not do so in future either, the president stated. He pointed to the American invasion of Afghanistan, saying the Western policies have only wreaked havoc on Afghan people for 20 years and have not brought about anything but carnage. Tasnim echoes exchanges between the UN and Iran. UN chief hails Iran for hosting Afghan refugees. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, described Iran as a very influential country among the UN member states and praised the Islamic Republic for hosting Afghan refugees generously. In a telephone conversation with Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian on Thursday evening, September the 9th, Guterres congratulated the top Iranian diplomat on taking office. He then appreciated the efforts of Iran in generously hosting Afghan refugees, stressing his commitment to supporting Iran's efforts in hosting the displaced persons. For his part, Amir Abdullahian emphasized Iran's readiness to cooperate with the UN to find a political solution to the current situation in Afghanistan, in line with talks held during the meeting of the foreign ministers of Afghanistan's neighbors. Tehran Times tells of talented Afghans getting scholarships. Iranian University to grant more scholarships to Afghans. At the 7th meeting of the Board of Trustees of Allame Tabatabai University, it was approved that the university awards scholarships to 35 faculty members and talented students of Afghanistan annually, with the aim of expanding scientific and cultural ties between the academic community and the media of the two countries. Accordingly, Allame is the first Iranian university to offer scholarships to faculty members, talented students, and Afghan journalists since 2016, with the aim of expanding scientific and cultural ties between the two countries. The number of recipients of this scholarship in previous years was 20, which has increased to 35 this year. Some 57,675 foreign nationals from 133 countries are studying in Iranian universities, many of whom have returned to their country with the outbreak of the pandemic. Afshin Akhundzadeh, an official at the Organization of Student Affairs, has said. That would be it for the news segment, but do stay tuned. A number of scientific board members of Tehran University's medical faculty have set out to provide medical services to Afghan nationals in Yas Clinic. Some 25% of corona cases in the region are Iran's to deal with, but that is overshadowed by the situation in Afghanistan. At least it is to these doctors. The root medical problem would be insurance, but Iranian governments have been seeing to that to their best capability. Mr. Abedi is an Afghan affairs expert who joined us on Skype. Let's hear him out.
Currently, illegal immigrants to Europe are usually kept in refugee camps for years, but we see that many Afghan refugees are presently living in Iran's cities. They are able to utilize a plethora of services provided for them. Right now, 8 services for impoverished areas and those living on the margins are being offered by the IRGC and Basij. These all-inclusive services are being implemented regardless of nationality and race and are also being provided for Afghans in Iran. 8 packages are being distributed amongst Afghans as well.
Yas Clinic is the first medical stronghold specially set up for Afghans, and several doctors' offices in Tehran have volunteered their free services to that clinic. That would be on Tuesdays and Wednesdays for all Afghans, be they passport or Amayesh card holders or undocumented. The clinic started work late August in Tehran's Yas hospital complex and has offered services in several fields, namely brain and kidney surgery.
Iran has many good features for us, and without them, we wouldn't choose Iran as a place to live. Living here has advantages and disadvantages for us, but in general, I have been satisfied with conditions so far. I have many Iranian friends that I really care about, and I love the people of Iran. Many Iranians supported my cafe. Many also helped me with obtaining operational licenses.
Now, it's not just immigrants with high prospects Iran welcomes. There were some 3,700 exceptional Afghan students studying in this country as of August last year. Like Iranian students, they are provided with educational, rehabilitation, and physical training services. But what of future prospects? There are those in a hurry to get away and into Iran, but they got stuck along the way. Our principal's own sister is stuck in Mazar Sharif. That's closer to the Uzbek border than the nearly 950-kilometer border shared between Afghanistan and Iran. Still, she wants to come here.
My sister is over there with her 5 children. Before the fall of Mazar-e-Sharif, she had begun the process of obtaining a visa to come to Iran, but unfortunately the Iranian embassy there was closed, so now they are still there. But before the embassy closed and the arrival of the Taliban, Iran was expediting the visa issuance process. In this time, a visa that could normally take at least 2 months for approval was being issued in 3 to 4 days, so that people who needed to leave could do so. So the Iranian embassy was very cooperative and helpful with the situation.
Afghans appear to favor Iran for language, culture, tribal and historic commonalities with this country. Commonalities the Americans appear to have tried to dampen during their 20-year occupation of Afghanistan. Doesn't sound like any such efforts actually worked, though.
Because we share the same language, if you go to Kabul and speak with an Iranian accent, most people will understand what you're saying. But they may not understand the Farsi accent of a person from Tajikistan or Uzbekistan. This is because we both share similar language and cultures. People here wear hijab and they can identify with Iranians and their lifestyles.
Dari, the Afghan dialect of Persian, is one of Afghanistan's 2 official languages and is used by intellectuals and the elite. Until 1857, Herat was a part of Iran, and only after Iran and Britain signed the Paris Treaty of 1857 did Iran abandon its claim, although it did reserve the right to send forces to Afghanistan if its frontier is violated.
Afghanistan
was part of Iran in the Achaemenid period, in the era before Islam known as the Aryan period. In modern history, colonial competition was taking form in the region between Britain and Russia in the 19th century. Britain's goal was to preserve its interests in India in this colonial period. During the Qajar dynasty, Britain encouraged the Afghan ruler in Herat to separate from Iran. At this time, 2 battles broke out between Iran and British forces. They also took over some of Iran's islands in the southern seas. During this time, Britain forced the Qajar king, who was considered to be dependent on foreign nations, to sign the Paris Accord, which separated Afghanistan from Iran.
This is not to say there's no work to be done in Iran by stretching its means, but only to a point of not breaking. Iran, after all, is suffering an economic plight of its own. Iran has inclusive policies, which is why refugees and even undocumented foreign nationals affected by COVID-19 can approach hospitals and health posts and access free of charge COVID-19 testing, treatment, and hospitalization, in the same way Iranian nationals can. It's basically a matter of luck where you get hospital bed and service, public or private. In 2020, a third of the 300,000 most vulnerable refugees got to get enrolled in health insurance, given COVID-19 had stretched the health services really thin. International support is needed more than ever in this country to avoid exacerbating refugees' vulnerabilities. In emergency situations like what Afghans are facing, even short-term aid counts. Beginning April 2020, UNHCR and the Iranian government rolled out a gift cards project. That consisted of one-off cash grants to cover 3 months' worth of minimum expenditure baskets. As of June 2020, almost 5,000 persons had been assisted with this gift cards project.
Living conditions have been good in many ways. Right now, we're able to obtain driver's licenses. Of course, those who have passports are able to get driver's licenses. They can open bank accounts and purchase cell phone numbers in their own names, and many other facilities have been given to us, which are, in my opinion, among the advantages meeting our needs.
As for political solutions to Afghans' agony, early in September, the Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian had a chat with former Afghan President Hamid Karzai to confirm Iran's support of dialogue among all groups in Afghanistan. This would be to form an inclusive government which reflects the ethnic and demographic makeup of the country. This is the only way for Afghanistan to reach lasting peace, Abdullahian said. Karzai confirmed he and other elders were engaged in negotiations with different groups, including the Taliban. Abdullahian also said Iran would keep its border crossings with Afghanistan open to ease the current situation in that country, and it would continue to trade with Afghanistan. Keeping the border open all along, however, was not feasible. Families are getting through, but border guards are wary of single men, as they could be drug dealers or terrorists, going by accounts. That'll be it for today. Thanks for watching from the whole team. Do return to the box at the same times next week and each week after, though, as you never know what's on. Till next week, bye.